Welcome to a Tin Dog podcast. This time I'm talking about some lovely Big Finish. Now, The Lady of Mercia follows on almost directly from Eldrad Must Die. Now, in the way that Eldrad Must Die kind of focused on Turlough, this time it's Tegan's turn. Now, with Smoke and Mirrors coming out, it's as if Janet Fielding's the most prolific Doctor Who companion going. Similarly, next time's one, Prisoners of Fate, will focus on Nyssa's character. Now everyone's got their favourite type of Doctor Who story. Some people have a real soft spot for Base Under Siege. Other people adore historicals. For me, historicals never really did it. I kind of caught myself sitting there going, the aliens will be here in a minute. They will. They'll be here in a minute. Often in historical stories you also have that whole one person looks a bit like someone from the past or ends up taking on the role and pretending to be someone. As themes, they don't work so well for me. But I'm a huge Tegan fan, and I've been enjoying Big Finish's output even more than I've been enjoying Doctor Who on the TV. Rather sad to say that that's the 4th year in a row. This does not mean that TV Doctor Who is bad. Far, far from it. It just means that Big Finish's output is just glorious. But Big Finish's output also has its ups and downs. Not every story is for everyone. And then I got listening to Lady of Mercia. Another Doctor Who story set in the North gets my vote every time, despite the fact that I'd have to drive south for several hours to get to where this is located, but let's not go there. Actually, that's a lie. I would actually have to drive north for a good 40 minutes to get to York. But that's episode 4. This story takes place in a fictional polytechnic/university near Liverpool, and deals, in one of its storylines, with the events happening over 1,000 years ago in UK. Now, a lot of people in England go on about how America doesn't have much history. It has. It's just the history of the people who turned up, starts in the 1600s. But there's about 800 years worth of UK history just missing. It's called the Dark Ages for a reason. Not a lot of stuff was written down. It's not because there was one massive solar eclipse, as I used to think when I was a kid. Not a lot is known in between the Romans leaving and the French turning up to take over. I know that's an oversimplification, but you get the gist. The story, one of the stories, concerns Ethelred's wife. You've heard of Ethelred the Unready, possibly. Well, this warrior queen, the Queen of Mercia, was fighting off people from the north, further north, and the south, getting rid of the Vikings, or Danes, as they had become known as time had gone on. Basically the whole Scandinavian Empire thing, you don't need to know this. And of course her brother, who wants to take over and unify and create the very first, country called England. Now I say that historicals aren't quite for me. That's not completely true. There are a few examples, both on TV and on audio, that I love. Almost immediately is Council of Nicaea. And why? Because I actually learnt something. Like the original Doctor Who remit, bits of history were played out before me, and they stuck. They went into my head and stayed there, which as you get past 40 becomes an increasingly difficult thing to manage. So what's the basic plot about? Well, somebody's messing about with time. Think Time Monster without the monster, or the master. Somebody in a university's built a rudimentary time machine. Weirdly enough, it's just enough to travel back in time, pick someone up and bring them back and interview them. I'm doing the little rabbit ears. Which played into an idea I once had for a very nice Radio 4 show, time travel chat show, consisting, think Larry Sanders, only with guests from across history, and you get the basic idea. I simply must get round to pitching it at some point. Getting back to the review, this time machine, being all time machines built in the 70s/80s, was a bit faulty, a bit dodgy. Similarly, at the same university, this is 1983, a sword has been borrowed from a Manchester university in order to be put on display as part of a Queen of Mercia convention. The sword is pilfered by the head of the history department, taking it to his wife, who's the head of the physics department, plugged into the time machine, and all hell breaks loose. Now, it's always good to have a split narrative, something happening in the past and the present. It's nice to split up the group, especially when you've got a crowded TARDIS, to coin a phrase. Turlough is given less to do, but he's still given some fantastic lines here. Nyssa, as always, is wide-eyed and going on and on about Traken. We can forgive it because that's kind of all she's for. The quest for the cure for the disease has long since been forgotten and is very rarely mentioned, which kind of fits into the way that TV Doctor Who used to behave. A major plot device is just ignored. I'm sure that's going to come back next time when I review something else, but that's not important. The important bit of this is that Tegan and a history professor swap places with the intended heir to the throne. All hilarity breaks loose, resulting in, at some point, Tegan taking on the role of the heir to the throne. An Australian northern accent is a wonder to behold, and Janet really pulls it off. Janet Fielding likes Tegan. Now, this is actually something of, well, a surprise. She's had a love-hate/hate relationship with the character over the years as far as a fan can see, and it's nice to see that she's seen Tegan for what she is. It's not good when she's written as basically a bad character. She's out of her depth, and that's fair enough. She wants to go home, a major motivating function, but she also brings the Doctor down a peg or two. She sees things as they are. She's down to earth. She's incredibly funny, which is the thing I loved about Tegan the most. And here she is allowed to shine. Possibly the best Tegan story ever. Give Janet enough to do and she will not let you down. This is something that needs to be remembered over and over again by anyone writing for Tegan. Now, obviously, the focus of this story is on Tegan, which is going to get my vote. My love of stroppy characters dates back to Tegan's performances on the TV, and the events that take place towards the end do impinge slightly on the things that she says in her last story. Things are getting a bit much. Immutable bits of time are just out to annoy everyone. Yes, like the modern series, there is talk of relationships, but like the classic series, it's not by the central characters. These things work marvellously. So yes, Lady of Mercia may be historical, and that may put you off, but you'd be wrong. So go away and get hold of a copy. Until next time, be seeing you.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions. Doctor Who, The Lady of Mercia.
England, 1983. Time to stretch our legs, I think.
You've brought us here for a reason, haven't you, Doctor?
You're here for the conference, of course. The heirs of Ethelfrid. Perspectives on the Queens of the Dark Ages.
Tegan, look at this.
Some old sword in a case.
Tegan, what's the matter with you?
I was staring at the sword, and I heard this noise.
And here we are, 918 AD.
These are the interlopers.
A sorcerer and his apprentice, I
am Ethelfrid of Mercia, Queen of the Northern Lands and Protector of the Northern Peoples. And I am beset on all sides by enemies from abroad and within.
We're not going anywhere, Dr. Stone, not if there's a chance of getting Tegan and your husband back.
Tegan or her husband, surely?
One of them's dead? That's what you're saying?
Foul witch! Do not presume to tell me what to think. Guards! Place these creatures in irons, then search every corner of this castle. You must find my daughter!
You're outnumbered! Surrender, woman!
Never! Not to Viking filth.
No! There are more of them in the valley. You'll get us all killed.
I am Elfwyn, Princess of Mercia, and I am here to wreak havoc on you all!
Subscribers get more at bigfinish.com.
You've been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its connected properties are copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. To contact the show, email tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. Whostrology, a Time Traveller's Almanac, is available through Telos Publishing or Amazon. Visit www.whostrology.com for further information. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.